For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, 30 minutes-ish of time-wasting fun. I say that because, I mean, we have some people who have listened to the show almost from the very beginning, and you know that it was pretty much 30 minutes on the dot. We were very, not materialistic, militaristic when we started doing this podcast. I guess it's maybe almost 10 years ago now. And just in the last few months, I've had this whole, you know what, if I want to keep talking, I'm going to keep talking. You hear that about old people. You know, Sophia from the Golden Girls. At some point, you just kind of lose your filter. You're just like, you know what, I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm just going to, I don't care. I don't give a crap. So we've been going beyond 30 minutes, and I think that you've enjoyed it because you keep listening, and you keep emailing us and joining in on the discussions. But here's one thing that I want to ask you today. Let me segue this. I take full responsibility for the lateness of our shows. There you go. Now, do you think that people take responsibility for things these days? That's actually what we're talking about today. Because I've run into several situations, usually when dealing with businesses, usually when, you know, something goes wrong or you have to reach out to customer service for whatever issue. And I find that I'm the one blamed as the customer. I'll explain what I mean coming up on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here, back on The Scribble. All right, so we've had the same, we've had a few different web hosting and email providers for our companies, just because I've always said from the beginning, I don't want to keep all of our eggs in one basket, so that if, you know, a certain web hosting provider goes under, that we're all of a sudden screwed and we lose, you know, every single one of our websites and all of our emails are disconnected. So we've spread it out to a few different providers, and one of them we've had from the very beginning. So that's, you know, about 20 years we've had. And so this is the thing. You'd think that, like, I mean, I own businesses that we, you know, retail businesses. We have customers. We appreciate, you know, all of their patronage, and we still have a very sort of customer first sort of, you know, mentality, vibe. That's what keeps you successful, right? I mean, they're the ones that pay your bills. So we're very customer service oriented, and customer centric, I guess, would also be the term. So this web provider has a couple of our company websites and then my one of my email addresses. So again, we've got like at jbonair.com, and then we've got our different, stores, and then there's an actual corporate email addresses that we have internally and things. So, so they have a couple of our different web or email addresses. All of a sudden, I get a message from them, like from their automated system, basically saying that my email has been, flagged as, sending spam and all these things. So I was confused by this because, truthfully, really, since I've been retired and I'm not on the radio every day, I'm not in the newspaper, every week, I'm not front and center in the media spotlight every day where I've got listeners or readers or whatever contacting me every day. The email address in question is used, I'm not kidding you, maybe 5 times per week. Could you imagine? I mean, now if you work then and they, you still do emails, that's not a lot, right? Now if you're just at home and go, how many personal emails do you send in a week? Maybe 5. But that's what I'm saying is this email address is not used. It's not firing back to 200 listener emails, from the radio shows and things like that, because I don't do that anymore. So, to get this message, I forwarded it to their support or whatever. Now, this is another thing, too. It's so fucking difficult to even find contact information for places nowadays, right? And what's worse is when it's communication companies, when it's the phone company. Why do you make it so difficult to find your phone number? Right? I mean, I don't get it. Your phone, back in the day, you used to have, there was a contact button right on the front page. Now I get it. One, lots of spam and, junk mail or whatever, and people are going to gather that and then just, mass mail you, which is what I was accused of. And so, you hide it, and you also kind of want the customer to find the answers themselves. That's the quickest way to lose me as a customer, let me just tell you. If I have to spend even 2 minutes looking for your contact information, and you know what ends up happening, right? You click the contact or the support link or whatever it is, it brings up the knowledge base, the resources. So now they expect you to find the answer for yourself because they don't have the time. And again, that could be a symptom of downsizing. There, fewer human representatives, and they want, bots to help you, and they just want to, cut the... It's like, no, back in the day, you used to have, operators are standing by. Remember that when you'd watch commercials to call in for something and order it. And so, or even just to make a donation to a charity, right? And so I reached out to their support, this 20-year business, with whom we've held accounts. And they said, well, you're doing such and such. And so I wrote back and I was like, I'm not doing anything. What are you talking about? Yes, you've been flagged in the system, blacklisted for da-da-da-da, so stop doing it. Really? And I said, I don't even know what that means. I don't even, you're using this, web lingo and web, terminology and crap. There was other things. I don't remember exactly what it said because I didn't understand it. And so I kind of thought, does this make me a Karen when I go and say, I need this to be bounced to, the executive level because you're blaming me for something when I'm the one who came to you asking, what's this about? I can't stop doing something that I'm not doing and something that you won't explain to me that I'm doing. Right? So unless you tell me what I'm doing, I can go and say, oh shit, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? That was me. Actually, I did. Right? I'll own it. That's taking responsibility. But so you've just shoved this back at me, and I'm like, that's very accusatory that you've just, you're saying that I'm, like, really? Go into my account. I don't know, how much access they have. They can see the number of emails you sent, but I don't know if they actually can see the emails that I've sent. And so, just like I said, maybe 5 emails a week. Look over the last 6 months. Go and look at my account and tell me, on average, an average week, how many emails do I send? Go back to April. Go back to, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. So don't you think that's a bit abnormal if all of a sudden out of nowhere I'm just randomly emailing and right? I mean, so what you would expect is they would contact you and say, "Oh, hey, heads up, maybe you were hacked," or "Oh, we've detected unusual activity," right? Something like that to make me aware of it. But to come out swinging, going that you're blacklisted, you're spamming, whatever. I thought I'm being punished for something. So let's say I was hacked. So I'm being punished for getting hacked in your system. That's a little backwards here. I would think that that's not quite, the right way around. So that's one example that, and I've had it just a couple of times, and it just makes me go and say, this is why I don't even want to contact companies. I was saying to our producer Suzanne the other day, she's had this ongoing issue with a parking pass. I think I actually talked about it on the show not too long ago. She said a parking pass at her gym that, they validate parking, whatever, but it should, you put it on your dash or on your window and it should scan as you're approaching so that the gate or the, whatever is blocked that lets you in, it should scan that. So as you're approaching, it should just let you in. And so she's had an issue with that. And so that's exactly what she was saying to me is, there's just so many things nowadays that if it's a minor issue, like if it's just something that it's not a big deal, that I just let it slide. I don't even bother trying to get it fixed. I don't even, reach out because you already have that frustration going into it, right? You already know that what should be a 5-minute phone call to wherever it is or to, maybe it's in the same city, maybe it's in a different country, who knows? But what used to take 5 minutes to just kind of get your answer and then be on your way now turns into 45 minutes because either the people aren't trained, they have to, put you on hold because you're asking them something they don't know about. They don't have a supervisor right in the room like they used to at a call center. So they have to basically just get into a chat queue and wait for somebody to chat with them because they've never even met their supervisor before. So they're maybe sitting 10th in line. And now, there's no... Back in the day, you could just walk over to a supervisor, right? "Oh, hey, I got a question about this and this." "Okay, great, thanks." And then they're back on the phone within a minute. How many times have you been put on hold for upwards of 5 minutes and you're just sitting going, did they leave me? Like, did they forget about me? Like, what the hell happened? We had an instance with our insurance company, with our health insurance company, and it was, we had changed over at the end of the year, but they had changed something in the plan and it gave us all new numbers. So like we were still set up in the system, but then because they had changed one of the, I don't know if it was eyeglasses or whatever, but just one thing had changed, but everything had switched. So we had new numbers and new cards and, it was just like this hassle. So I legitimately called in because I said, well, I've got to activate or I've got to, confirm whatever. So I was going on the website. It wasn't working. I'm having them try to, reset my, or send, forgot your password link. I'm clicking that, enter my email address. It's saying that it's not registered. And I'm like, how the hell? Now all of a sudden, maybe it was my spamming email address. Who knows? So I call in and I give them my information. They don't have me in the system. And I was just like, excuse me, I've been with you for how many years? That's another thing. By the way, just as a customer tip, when you're dealing with a business, if you've been with them for a long time, make them aware of this. I'm not saying lose your cool and raise your voice and start telling them off, but I'm just saying casually ask them, because I've done that. While you've got my account open, just like, how many years have I been with you guys? Oh, 18 years. Wow, has it been that many already? Okay, good, 18 years. Right, just sort of in a casual way, because now it's like, oh, and that's of course if the person on the other end cares. Do they? Probably not. But I like to throw that out there. I'd like to just kind of make that known. So I've been with you. I guess I've been in my house for 18 years. So yeah, with my house insurance, that's probably how long I've been with you guys. Yeah. Right? So the medical insurance or the health insurance company doesn't have my information. And so again, did you spell your name right? Did you spell your email address right? How is that not... I don't want to use the word offensive, but how is that not just a ridiculous... Yes, I know how to spell my name, thank you. I don't know that you know how to spell my name because you can't seem to find my file. So the woman puts me on hold, whatever, and then, oh, this is another thing too. Then you're passed on to like 2 or 3 other departments. So you've just spent, first of all, 5 minutes waiting to get to a human. You've explained the story, right? That you've gone through this big long explanation, and you've pressed the right numbers or said the right prompts to get to that person. And then they tell you that they're not the right one. So that's when you now sit on hold, and they will basically just dump you into another queue, and you then will, start all over again when you finally get somebody. So that's exactly what happened here. So she's like, oh, well, I'll put you through to the, whatever. Okay, fine. So I put it on speakerphone. I'm going about my business at home, just doing whatever. The music is playing. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 minutes. At this point, because I'm still doing, it's not like I was just, back in the day, you'd be standing in the kitchen with the phone up to your ear. No, we got speakerphone. I'm walking around doing things around the house. But I thought I'm going to keep this going as long as possible because this is 45 minutes now just waiting to get somebody on the fucking phone about confirming my account. 50 minutes, 55. At 1 hour, I end up going onto their website and I look for first of all, I look for the customer service, I look for the complaints, I look for I get every email address as I can. And then when I see that they've got a media center, I'm like, you know what? Let me get a press statement because I'm on the radio here. You are fucking wasting my time. Let me find out why. First of all, I don't have an account after all these years. Then they're asking me if I know how to spell my name. I want somebody to review this call and grade it. I want somebody who's in the training center or in, whatever, in the call somewhere to review this call when it's over and tell me how it was handled. And then I'll read the statement because, and as I've told you before, when you deal with businesses and you're phoning them, record the call. Like I said, I was doing stuff around the house, so I didn't, have it. But absolutely, if you've got a complaint or a customer, get it on the record. Just because they say they're recording it, you do it too, so that you've got the file. And if they go and say, well, no, you weren't told that, go and say, excuse me, let me play you the clip. And then if you're like us, we have things transcribed from our audio recordings in the radio studio. Go and say, actually, you had said da-da-da-da-da, I responded da-da-da-da-da, and then you said da-da-da-da-da. Because it's very difficult to dispute that then, right? If I can go and say, would you like to hear what you said? I can play it for you. That's a game changer. So as I'm on hold, and it's the same fucking music over and over again. I'm typing up my email. I even did a screenshot of the phone to show that the phone number is theirs, and then the length of the call was over 1 hour now. As I'm typing, I said, been on hold, no talk time for, 50 some minutes or however long it was. And then as another 15 minutes goes by, I then do a reply all to that original email. So now I'm going and saying an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes, whatever. It was almost 2 hours of hold music. So I unloaded on the final email because at this point I was like, wow, yeah. And again, at that time I had looked up their Better Business Bureau rating. I'd read customer reviews. I even copied and pasted a bunch of their 1-star reviews, giving them a shitty rating on customer service. So I had my full, I had time to do research. That's one thing. You keep me waiting as a customer. I'm the same way in a store. You have me waiting in line at self-checkout. Every minute, I'm putting one more thing back, and that's less money from me. So I'm all about holding people and businesses accountable. So I want answers. I don't just want the apology. I want to know what happened. You need to tell me where did my call go? Why did she, my understanding was that she was just trying to find an answer, or she was putting me through to somebody. Well, what department did she put me to? Why did they never answer the phone? Why at some point doesn't your system just boot me out after a while? Why would it keep me on hold for that long? I said, if you record the call, I want you to tell me exactly what happened. 2 hours. I said, I've got screenshots. This is how long. This is your phone number on the thing. So they ended up coming back, very apologetic, and eventually we got a media statement from them. They ended up giving me 3 months free of our insurance coverage, which is great. If I wanted to be one of those customers, I would just be like, I'm going to milk that out of the eyeglasses, the dental, the massages, the chiropractor, and then at 3 months ago, thank you, I'm going to cancel now. But no, we need it for our job. So again, it's the accountability, and I don't like just getting the brush off. Give me answers. If it's your company that did something that impacted me or affected my life in some way, you should be able to tell me why it happened, or how it happened, what you're doing to make it never happen again. That's accountability. I think back to when I worked in retail, and I've talked about this too. When I worked at Party City when I was in my 20s, it was all about customer service. It was all about, if you didn't know an answer, that's a great question. Let me find out for you. That's a great question. Let me get back to you on that. You know what? Or if they phone the store, you know what? Let me grab your name and number. Let me find out for you. I want to get the right answer. I want to get, the right accurate information. And then I'll call you back. That's what you would do. You would own it. That's accountability. I answered the call, so it is my responsibility to handle whatever it is that this person is asking. Now, obviously, yes, there's going to be some situations where they want to talk to somebody at the wedding invitation desk or they've whatever, and I can't do that. Fine, I get it. But it's my responsibility to transfer to that person. Perhaps if I do want to go above and beyond, I'd follow up with Janet and go, hey, did you get back to those people? Or, did everything work out with that, right? I could do that as a follow-up. That's still owning it. That's still taking responsibility. Because I was the handoff, to that person, to that employee. But I'm thinking also, too, it's not necessarily just in workplaces. I don't believe that parents hold kids accountable. And I'm going to explain why. And you know that I hate kids. I've made no secret about that. But let's talk about kids and responsibility on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Jeremy Bradley here on the Scribble. We're talking accountability. Let's go to the youngins because it seems like it's just a cop-out that parents will jump in and stick up for their kids almost no matter what, from what I've seen recently. And that's something that my mom talked about back in the day. She was a teacher for 30-some years. And she would say that when parents would come in for the parent-teacher conference, that nowadays, I mean, she just retired like 5 years ago. So I'll say nowadays as though it's still recent. It probably hasn't changed. But she would say that the kids would come with the parents to parent-teacher conferences. And so that's a big change from when I was in school. My brothers were in school. I'm the youngest. Because that was the night that you feared the most. Not that we were bad kids. And truthfully, at least for our elementary school, my mom was a teacher at our school. So we really didn't act up anyway because, all the teachers kind of know your mom. So we just, that's why I was on my best behavior all the time. But anyway, then junior, later years of school, high school and what have you. But she would say that, we would never go. We knew that she was going to the meeting that night and we would just be like, oh crap, are we going to get in shit when she's home? Or, what's going to happen? I was always the ass-kissy student anyway. So but there was still a bit of fear, right? Because you just don't know, right? These are adults talking about the kid. And you did kind of, well, it's not that we were scared of our teachers, but I mean, there was a level of, I'm trying to think, there were actually a couple teachers that I didn't even know their first names. We just knew them as Mr. or Mrs., right? Because that's all you did. So now my mom says that the kids are coming with the parents, which then makes you wonder, okay, well, is the teacher going to be as honest and openly speaking about the kids and the behavior when the kid is sitting right there, right? If it's adults, you can just, you can talk and say, well, you know what, I'm concerned about this, or he's doing this, she's doing that, this isn't happening, this is happening too much, and you can have a constructive and productive conversation. So when the kid is right there, I mean, it kind of makes me wonder why the parent brings the kid along. Is the parent going and saying, did you do that? Is that really what you do? Yeah, you better stop doing that, right? Or is it the parent going and saying, well, I want the kid here so that the kid can dispute it, and I'm going to back my kid. And my mom says more often than not, that's what happens, is the mom or dad, or if it's both or whoever, is basically sticking. It's almost like the two of them against the teacher. And so that's why my mom was just like, I think I'm kind of done with this shit. Like, I don't need to deal. Like, she's in her 70s now, or she's in her 60s now, but, so here she is, in her 40s, 50s, and 60s, and she's basically arguing with she would do the kids that were in, I don't know how old they were, 9 or 10 years old, maybe not even, and she's like, I've been in the education system for 30 years, and here I am arguing with a non-teenager even, a kid, basically. I'm arguing with a kid. I'm having to defend, myself and argue with a kid. And the parent is siding with the kid. So the parent is not even in the classroom or the school or, anywhere close by, but already knows that my kid would never do that. My kid would never say that. And, so that's when it's like, yeah, my mom's like, peace, I'm out, not dealing with this shit anymore, done. So it starts from an early age, this whole accountability thing, right? I think when I was in high school, that was, when you're a kid and there's rules or there's just stuff that you feel, it's unfair and it's just not. And then when you're an adult and you grow up and you're kind of like, you know what? It actually makes sense that they did that. I kind of appreciate that now. This is exactly what happened in my high school. So so whatever time our classes would start, it doesn't start right at 9 o'clock. I think, it was like 8:55 or something, it was always kind of those weird times that we would start. So at our high school, you had to be in the classroom. You had to be physically in the door, like you had to pass the threshold of the doorway by the time the bell rang. So let's say that it was 9 o'clock just for the ease of telling the story. So the bell rings at 9 o'clock. That's the start of your first class, right? So you could be booking it down the hall. Bell rings. You step foot at 9:00:03. You get a detention. Detention. Seriously. And again, as kids, we were just like, oh my God, that's so strict. Oh, come on. No, I was in the room. Oh, I was running. Oh, I was, blah. Nope. And there were even some teachers that would go and close the door right away. And the door was locked. So you just knew, all right, we got to go to the office. Got to get a detention slip. And you were not allowed back into the class. So let's say your first class is English, okay? So it's 9 o'clock. It's English class. I'm late. The door's closed. I have to go to the office, get my detention slip. I'm not allowed back into English class until I serve that detention either that day after school or first thing in the morning. And then I can go to English class tomorrow, right? Because I've now served it. And then, and generally you did because, you're not looking at that going, well, I'm just not going to go to English tomorrow then. No, I'm just, because that piles up and then it just gets you in deeper shit. So it was very strict. It was teaching responsibility though, right? You get to school on time. And the reason that we were given as kids was that's how jobs work. Because they did back in the day. Remember, I graduated in the year 2000. So, we're going back 26 years now at this point. But that's how a job did work. Especially if you had a punch in, I guess some people still do have a punch clock or a clock in computer or whatever, to log when they get into their office. And so, you're starting to get docked pay then if you're late, or you're just, you're deducted or you're whatever it is. And if you got lates on your, attendance sheet, I realize most offices and things like that are flexible now. So, people are rolling in at 9:04 and it's, not a big deal. But that's just not how we were taught as teenagers growing up. It was responsibility. Your job starts at 9 o'clock. Your job, for the sake of this, is school. School is your job. When you're done school, it's going to be an actual workplace. And your shift starts at 9:30. You're there at 9:30 and you're ready to go. And so, yes, the detention thing was a little bit, kind of prickly, but I got to tell you, when I was working and once I started, you're damn sure that I was in a panic if I was late for my job, even though I knew that it was still relaxed and it wasn't a really big deal, right? Yeah, you can be 5 minutes late. They don't care. I was still freaking out. If I was taking the bus and, the connection didn't come or the first bus was late, I was sitting there looking at the clock going, oh my God, I'm going to be late. Even though I might have been the best employee, everybody loved me and, I don't get in trouble or I'm in good with the manager or whatever it was, I was still shitting my pants, still freaking out. And I would still be running. I'd get off the bus and I'd still run to the door. Even though I knew there would be no problem, there would be no, disciplinary action. There would be nothing on my record or in my file. I would know that, but I would still, because that's just what we were taught as kids. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. That is responsibility and accountability. It's not accountability. Now you're going to go and say, well, I didn't make the bus late. How am I accountable for the bus? That's not the point. I'm accountable if I didn't call in and communicate that and say, look, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. right? There's accountability there. And I would be. And I'd be emailing in, or I'd be calling, and I'd just be saying, like, and they knew that I would be taking the bus, and, you know, they know the buses are late. It's still not my fault, but I'm accountable for my actions. I'm accountable for the communication if I'm going to be late or not coming in or whatever it is. So then in college, you know, again, I took journalism and communications and broadcasting, advertising, PR, and all this other crap. And we had the rule in our class, in our program, that a spelling mistake, like if you spelled somebody's name wrong, or even if you just had a typo, you failed the assignment. You failed the assignment because you had a wrong word. I mean, you know, would that make sense in any kind of a university or college program? Maybe not necessarily, but at the same time, if it's something where your whole thing is on writing essays and whatever, I would deduct marks then. I wouldn't necessarily fail a student, but in a journalism program where, now let's be honest, journalism and news has kind of gone down the shitter in recent years, so the accuracy and integrity isn't necessarily there. But certainly, you fail that one assignment, you fail that one, I guarantee you are reading over your next paper 3, 4, 5, 6 times over. You are making sure. And you know what happened? I did fail a journalism paper. So we had gone to a community newspaper. One of our assignments was we had to go to a media outlet and for the day, and then just, spend the day, shadow them, watch what they, just see how things go. So mine was the Selkirk Journal newspaper. Okay, so I go to, and it was out of town. So I go with a couple of the students. We all carpool with the 3 or 4 of us, whatever it is. We go to Selkirk. We go to the Selkirk Journal newspaper. You meet the publisher, the staff. You go with a reporter for a story, whatever it is, and then you come back and you had to basically write about the history of the Selkirk Journal and how it works, and and we had to double space it, and it was like 3 pages or whatever it was. So you have however long to do it. I always kind of, not that I waited until the last minute, but I would do the work a little bit earlier. I would do the preliminary work, and then my final reads, though, edits, reads, whatever, proofreading, whatever, was always very last minute. That's where I just kind of felt time crunch, pressure's on, gonna read this, gotta make sure. But the problem in doing that, though, is that if you have some kind of a technical problem where it's like, uh-oh, shit, paper jam in the printer, and I can't, because same kind of deal with high school. If that paper's due at 4:30, it's 4:30 because either that door is closed or the instructor is standing there with the little bin of papers because you turn them in. Remember, we're going back, however many years now, you were printing out your assignments. They were standing, and they would walk away, and they would put the lid or whatever on the little bucket of paper and walk away. So I had my Selkirk Journal, write up and everything done. Printed it at home, was ready to go on the bus, going back to college. I should have been reading it on the bus. I wasn't. Handed in. I did a really good job. I was just like, this is a pretty good paper, if I must say so myself. Get it back a few days later. Fail. And I was like, what? How is this a fail? So I'm flipping through. Our assignments always had to be double spaced for some reason. And it was on the almost the last page. It was like the second last paragraph, almost the very end. I selkirkjournal.com, or I guess www, because that's what you did 20 years ago, right? www.selkirkjournal.com. But here's the thing. When you do that, do you know what happens? The hyperlink, it's called, right? It turns blue, right? Right? It's blue. So when I printed it at home in grayscale or black or whatever it's called on your little inkjet printer, that didn't come through all the way. It basically faded out almost at the end of the line. So you could read part of selkirkjournal.com or www.selkirkjournal.com, but you couldn't read the whole thing. That was a typo. That was considered a typo. Because, what's the lesson here? Read it over. If you're working at a newspaper and you're the editor, your job is to look. Now, here's the thing. Your job isn't to look at every single fucking copy of the newspaper to make sure every little word. But what I'm saying is that, Or even if you're publishing a book or something, you're going to go and look and see, wait a second, we don't have, this, or a white paper or something, right? You're going to look at it. And so that was my thing. It was, you didn't proofread it, obviously. You didn't look at that and go, I would have been able to write the word in if I would have noticed it. That would have been acceptable because it would have been there. But yeah, even a technical problem can fuck you over and you still fail that assignment. Accountability. Why didn't you read over your paper? Why didn't you look it over? It's not good enough just to look it over on a screen. Now you got it in front of you. You had 20 minutes on the bus. Why didn't you read it over? Yep. So again, in the moment, you're just like, oh my God, I can't, that's so stupid. Why? But then I was kind of like, once I'm in this journalism world, now that I'm in news, and I'm kind of a stickler for shit like that now. I'm very particular about all those kinds of things. So it really does make you have a different perspective, right? So in the moment when you failed the assignment or you got detention, whatever it was, and you think that they're unreasonable and that's too strict and blah, blah, blah. And I'll admit, yes, some rules in school are pretty stupid and strict and don't make sense. But then you always ask yourself, but why do they exist in the first place? Why are they still around? Why did they implemented them for a reason, right, in the first place? And it just maybe takes a bit of maturity to kind of go and say, oh, I get it now. I see what they're doing. I see. So do I appreciate the whole detention thing at Sisler High School in Winnipeg? I do. I don't know that I ever had detention. I think what ended up happening for a lot of us, now this is maybe not the best way to follow up that story, I think we ended up just skipping the class, I think is what we did. I don't know that I or my friend, no, I do know one friend who always had detention because he was always late. But I think that, yeah, if you were late and the teacher, hadn't seen you or something like that, well, then you just said, fuck it, I'm just going to go to the cafeteria or whatever. I wouldn't even bother. It's when you would come through the door after the bell, right? You're screwing yourself over because, right, you come running in thinking that you're making it. Well, after a while, you're just like, well, screw it, I'm not going to make it, so I'm not going to go. And that's what we ended up doing a lot of the time. So... Don't get me started on accountability again. But yeah, do you see what I'm saying though, right? Like, because it just trains you now as an adult to be accountable for your actions, and that's essentially what it was. Especially, like I said, in journalism, yeah, if that's your job to proofread and give good copy, right? Quality copy, error-free copy, then yes, it makes sense to be put through those paces. When I read, news websites now, actually, it's funny because just the other day, we got to go, but just the other day, I was reading, I find that it's British news outlets, BBC, the Mail and things like that. They're very inconsistent with how they do punctuation. So they don't have the period in the quotation marks all the time. So it'll have a quote and it'll be quotation marks and then period. No, the period or the comma always goes inside the quotation marks. And it'll be inconsistent in the exact same article. And so for me, who was a magazine editor and I've been an editor for 20 some years, I look at that and my editor's eye says, okay, well, they don't know the rule. I can tell that something is copied and pasted from another source because you don't forget the period outside the quotation marks if you're a trained writer. You're not flip-flopping like that, especially if you're working at a major publication like the BBC or the Mail or whatever it is. So what that tells me as an editor is something was lifted from somewhere else, whether they copied it from another one of their stories or was taken from a website or even it was AI. Part of it's right and part of it's wrong. So when I see that you've got the period on the outside in certain parts of the article, I'm just like, that's not something that you, like a writer, a trained journalist has an eye for those kinds of things because either you know or you don't know that the period goes inside the quotation marks. If you don't know that the period goes inside the quotation marks, then you should not be in journalism. I realize that the BBC is also television, so maybe these people aren't, the best writers. They're more a stand-up journalist and I'll talk to the camera and that's my way of journalism. I get that too. But at some point, though, there's editors, right? When stuff goes onto the web, and the BBC of all places, that would be like the CBC in Canada. That's your basically, your public-funded, public broadcaster, your public news outlet. That's the taxpayers are paying it. Or in BBC, it's the users, right? The license, whatever. So I emailed the BBC and I just said, I'm very confused by this. How you guys, because there's that corrections tab, you can report grammatical errors. I didn't even know that they would have something like that. And so I just said, it's very distracting. It's very, actually, I think I was a bit sarcastic. I think I said it gives me chest pains as an editor, because, yeah, it to me, and anybody who just knows the basic rules, I don't see you as a credible source anymore because you don't know how to do basic punctuation, which I think that's something that you learn in high school. And again, in our English class, we were learning Shakespeare and poetry and all this other crap that, but they very rarely taught us the actual language. So I still have a bit of resentment towards that in our education system in Manitoba. But, where are the editors then? Like, who's accountable, right? It goes back to what I was just saying. So the writer doesn't know. Then you have an editor that's supposed to catch that. Why isn't the editor catching it and fixing it? Why does the editor not know? Okay, then it goes up to the publisher. The publisher, why aren't the editors catching your errors? Why aren't they doing it? Is anything going to change? Is anything going to get fixed? Probably not. And so there's no accountability, and nothing changes. Tell me your thoughts. Send me an email live at jbonair.com. Was there a rule when you were growing up that you just thought was ridiculous at the time, but now you look at it and go, you know what? I appreciate that. It makes sense, and I have a whole new respect for it. Live at jbonair.com. Do not spam me because I'll report you to the company that accuses me of being a spammer. And we're out of time. So, again, as always, thank you so much for listening to the show. I have our discussions. I look forward to them. I really do. I like putting it out there and just seeing whether you agree with me, disagree, have the same situations or scenarios or experiences. It's always fun to hear that. So again, live, LIVE at jbonair.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up The Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat